The cigar. America forgot. Cold open. Somewhere in Spain right now, someone is lighting one of the best-selling premium cigars in the country. It's not Cuban, it's not made by a legendary old family with a name everyone recognizes. It doesn't have a founder's portrait on the box or a century of war and revolution behind it. And yet, in the second largest cigar market on earth, this brand outsells almost everything else on the shelf. Most American cigar smokers have never heard of it. That's not an accident, that's the story. Because this brand actually did disappear once, not from history, but from an entire country, erased almost overnight by a corporate merger most smokers never even knew was happening. It vanished from American humidors for the better part of a decade. And when it came back, most people didn't even notice it had ever left. This is the story of VegaFina, the cigar that proves a legend doesn't need a revolution, a war, or 100 years of mystery. Sometimes it just needs a really good blend, the right factory, and a corporation that almost killed it by accident. By the end of this, you'll understand why a value cigar most Americans can't name has quietly become one of the most successful cigar brands alive today, and why its history is stranger than most vintage legends twice its age. Why this cigar matters. Here's the thing that trips people up about VegaFina. It doesn't fit the mold. Most cigar documentaries chase the same handful of stories. Pre-revolution Havana factories, exiled Cuban families, brands seized by a government and rebuilt from nothing in Miami or the Dominican Republic. Those are extraordinary stories, but they're not the only kind of extraordinary story the cigar world has to offer. VegaFina's story is different because it's a modern story. It was born not in a colonial-era Havana factory, but inside a massive 20th century state tobacco monopoly. It didn't become legendary because of scarcity or nostalgia. It became one of the most consumed premium cigars in the world because millions of ordinary smokers in dozens of countries kept picking it off the shelf year after year at a price point most people could actually afford. That's not glamorous. But it's rare in its own way because in an industry obsessed with rarity, VegaFina proves the opposite path can build a legend too. Consistency, accessibility, and just being good, again and again, at scale. Today, it's produced in more than 45 countries. It's considered one of the best-selling premium cigar brands in Spain, the world's second largest cigar market after the United States. And Cigar Aficionado has scored one of its blends, the Fortaleza 2, a 91, genuine critical respect for a cigar built to be affordable. But to understand how a value cigar climbed that high, you have to go back to where and who actually built it. The origin story. The year is 1998. The place is Spain. For most of the 20th century, Spain's tobacco industry wasn't really an industry in the normal sense. It was a monopoly. Tabacalera S.A. was the Spanish state's tobacco company, and it wasn't just a domestic seller of cigarettes and cigars. It was also one of the most important distributors of Cuban habanos on the planet, moving Cuba's most prestigious product through Spain and into markets across Europe. That's the world VegaFina was born into, not a small family workshop, but the commercial infrastructure of an entire national tobacco monopoly with deep ties to Cuban cigar culture. In 1998, Tabacalera launched something new, a brand built from scratch, meant to stand on its own. They called it VegaFina, from Vegas Finas, meaning something close to fine fields, or the finest growing plains, a direct nod to the quality of the tobacco land it drew from. The production wasn't in Spain and it wasn't in Cuba. It was handed to the Dominican Republic, specifically to Tabacalera de Garcia, a factory in La Romana that would go on to become one of the largest handmade cigar manufacturers in the entire world. This was the same region and the same production world that, after Cuba's revolution, had absorbed waves of displaced Cuban tobacco expertise and turned the Dominican Republic into the modern capital of premium cigar making. The blend itself was built for range, not for a single dramatic flavor. Fillers sourced from Colombia, Honduras, and the Dominican Republic wrapped for its classic line in a golden Ecuadorian Connecticut shade leaf over an Indonesian binder. Mild, balanced, approachable, not trying to overwhelm anyone, trying to win people. Think about what that combination actually represents. 4 different countries' tobacco, assembled inside a factory that itself sat in a 5th country, under a brand owned by a Spanish state company with Cuban distribution ties. VegaFina was, from its very first box, a genuinely international product, built less like a single grower's personal legacy and more like something engineered, deliberately, to travel well across borders and palates. That's not a knock on it, it's the whole reason it was able to scale the way it eventually did, and it worked almost immediately. The golden age, the first one. VegaFina hit the American market that same year, 1998, riding on the muscle of a company that already had deep distribution relationships across the tobacco world. But it didn't matter here in the US, it mattered there, in Spain, and across Europe, where it started building something few new cigar brands ever manage. Mass, sustained popularity, not a cult following among collectors. A genuinely wide fan base among everyday smokers who wanted something well-constructed, reliably good, and not painfully expensive. According to Altadis's own 1999 annual report, VegaFina's launch had already helped drive a real upswing in the company's overall sales volume within its first year on the market. That's an unusual kind of golden age. Most legendary cigars earn their reputation slowly, over decades, often only after they've become rare or disappeared. VegaFina earned its reputation the boring, difficult way by simply performing cigar after cigar, box after box, in real time, while it was still sitting on shelves. But behind that early success, something enormous was already moving into position, and it had nothing to do with tobacco quality at all. The hidden story. In 1999, the same window in which VegaFina was proving itself as a young brand, its parent company, Tabacalera SA, merged with SATA, the former French state tobacco monopoly. The result was a new corporate giant, Altadis SA. This wasn't a tobacco story, it was a boardroom story. 2 national monopolies, Spain's and France's, combining into one of the largest tobacco and cigar conglomerates on the planet. And when 2 giant companies merge, product lines get reorganized, restructured, or quietly shelved, regardless of how well they were actually selling. VegaFina got caught in that reshuffling. According to court records from a later US antitrust case, General Cigar Holdings versus Altadis's own filings confirmed something striking. VegaFina had been sold in the United States, including in Florida, and then simply sales of this product have been discontinued, not because Americans stopped liking it, not because of a scandal, a war, or a lost factory, because a merger between 2 European monopolies reorganized a young brand right out of an entire country's market. Meanwhile, the corporate dominoes kept falling. In August 2000, 2 of Altadis's American subsidiaries, Consolidated Cigar and Tampa, merged to form a new entity, Altadis USA. A month later, in September 2000, Altadis bought a 50% stake in Habanos SA, the Cuban state cigar monopoly itself, tying this same corporate family directly into the world of authentic Cuban cigars. In the middle of all that consolidation, VegaFina simply wasn't part of the American conversation anymore. Consider the scale of what Altadis had just become. Through its various holdings, including its stake in Habanos SA and its ownership of what had been Consolidated Cigar, Altadis emerged as the largest producer of both mass-market and premium cigars in the world, and the 4th largest tobacco company on the planet overall. A brand like VegaFina, barely 2 years old, wasn't a priority inside a company that size busy digesting 2 national monopolies and a half share of Cuba's entire cigar export operation. It's not hard to imagine how a young line got quietly dropped from an American distribution plan while executives were focused on integrating businesses worth billions. But here's the detail almost nobody clocks. It never actually went away. Not really. While it vanished from the US, it kept right on growing in Europe, quietly becoming one of the biggest selling cigars in Spain, while American smokers had no idea the brand had ever existed in the first place. Two entirely different realities, running in parallel, on opposite sides of the Atlantic for the better part of a decade. The fall, or was it? This is where VegaFina's story breaks the usual documentary formula. Most lost cigar stories end in genuine tragedy: a factory destroyed, a family exiled, a brand erased by revolution or bankruptcy, its formula lost forever. VegaFina's American disappearance wasn't tragic, it was bureaucratic. A young, successful brand simply fell out of a distribution plan during a multinational merger, collateral administrative damage from a deal signed in boardrooms thousands of miles from any tobacco field. For American consumers, though, the effect looked exactly the same as if it had disappeared for dramatic reasons. The cigar was gone. No explanation on the shelf, no headline, it just wasn't there anymore. For almost a decade, that's how it stayed, present and thriving across Europe, absent from the United States. Then, in 2007, it came back. Altadis USA relaunched VegaFina in America, the same brand, built on the same reputation it had spent nearly 10 years quietly reinforcing overseas. One retailer described the relaunch as the brand coming back like a phoenix, arguably stronger than before. That same year, 2007, brought a second seismic shift for the parent company. Altadis's board accepted a takeover offer worth roughly 16.2 billion euros from the British tobacco giant Imperial Tobacco. The deal cleared Spain's stock market regulator that November and was finalized in early 2008, folding Altadis and VegaFina along with it into the fourth largest tobacco company in the world. So the brand that vanished from America because of one merger came back to America almost exactly as another merger was closing around it. The quiet global rise. With its American return secured, VegaFina did not stand still. Instead of leaning on one blend, it kept expanding, carefully, deliberately, into new territory. In 2012, the brand released VegaFina Nicaragua, an all-Nicaraguan puro, dressed in a Habana 2000 wrapper grown in the Calapa region, a binder from the same valley, and filler pulled from both Xalapa and Esteli. A meaningfully bolder, fuller-bodied departure from the mild, easygoing profile that had built the brand's original European following. It was priced, at launch, somewhere between $5.50 and $6.25 a cigar, a number that tells you almost everything about VegaFina's philosophy. This was not a brand chasing prestige pricing, it was a brand chasing consistency at a price real smokers could sustain. Then came the Fortaleza 2-line, a medium to full-bodied expression wrapped in a darker Mexican leaf, built for smokers who wanted more intensity without leaving the VegaFina name. It's this blend that would go on to earn a 91-point score from Cigar Aficionado, serious validation for a brand built on affordability rather than exclusivity. By 2018, VegaFina was celebrating its 20th anniversary, and the numbers by then told a story most young brands can only dream of. It had become, by multiple industry accounts, the best-selling premium cigar brand in Spain, the largest cigar market in the world after the United States. Its reach had grown to more than 45 countries. To mark the milestone, VegaFina released something it had never done before, a genuine limited edition. The 20 Aniversario Gran Reserva arrived in a run of just 7,000 numbered boxes, built around Dominican and Nicaraguan tobacco, aged for at least 5 years before rolling. A real commitment to patience from a brand that had spent 2 decades building its reputation on speed to shelf reliability instead. It was housed in an elegant black lacquered box, carrying a specially designed anniversary logo that marked, for the first time, VegaFina treating itself like a brand with a history worth commemorating. What makes this story worth telling? There's no hidden vault of pre-revolution VegaFina boxes waiting to be discovered in a forgotten Havana warehouse. There's no black market auction circuit driving up prices on decades-old stock. This isn't that kind of story, and it would be dishonest to pretend otherwise. What VegaFina actually offers is something rarer in cigar storytelling. Proof that a brand can be erased from an entire country's market, not by history's usual villains of war, revolution, or embargo, but by something as unglamorous as a corporate merger, and still come back, still matter, still grow into one of the best-selling cigars on the planet. It's a reminder that forgotten doesn't always mean gone. Sometimes it just means gone from your side of the ocean, while an entire continent kept smoking it the whole time. Today, VegaFina is made at the same factory that also produces Monte Cristo, Romeo y Julieta, and the non-Cuban H. Upmann, sharing space with some of the biggest names in the cigar world at Tabacalera de Garcia, a member of the Pro Cigar Association of Dominican manufacturers. It sits on shelves next to legendary Cuban heritage brands without ever needing to borrow their legend. There's something almost contrarian about how VegaFina built its name. The cigar world tends to romanticize scarcity, the vintage box nobody can find, the discontinued line that only exists in a handful of private humidors, the story that ends in loss. VegaFina's story ends in the opposite place. A brand that's easier to find today than it's ever been, sold in more countries than it started in, still built around the same basic promise it made back in 1998. Solid construction, a fair price, and a blend designed to be smoked, not shelved and forgotten in a temperature-controlled room, waiting to appreciate in value. That doesn't make for a mysterious vintage hunt, but it makes for something arguably more impressive. A brand that survived being erased from an entire country's market, came back a decade later without missing a step, and then kept growing until it became one of the best-selling premium cigars on the planet, all without a single famous smoker's endorsement, a wartime legend, or a scarcity myth to lean on. Some cigars disappear because people forget them. Others disappear because they become legends nobody can get anymore. VegaFina disappeared because a merger agreement said so, and then it simply outlasted the paperwork, came back and kept selling.